I used to think the heaviest thing in the world was 190 pounds of muscle throwing a left hook at your jaw. I was wrong. The heaviest thing in the world is a plane ticket printed on a piece of cheap white paper sitting on a kitchen counter. Before we get into how a piece of paper completely destroyed my understanding of gravity, let me ask you something. I want you to drop a comment right now and tell me what city or country you are listening from. I always read them, and it reminds me that no matter how isolated we feel in our own heads, we are all standing under the same sky. All right, let us get back to the sweat, the blood, and the exact moment I realized I was losing the only fight that actually mattered. 10 days. That was the number Matteo casually dropped into the dead air of the locker room while he was unwrapping my hands. 10 days until the championship bout in Vegas, and 10 days until his contract with my promotion agency expired. After that, he was moving to Munich. A new sports medicine clinic. A new life. A life that did not involve patching up a 28-year-old heavyweight who did not know how to talk about his feelings without hitting a heavy bag first. I remember the smell of that locker room like it is permanently burned into my sinuses. Bleach, old leather, wintergreen rubbing alcohol, and the sharp, metallic tang of my own adrenaline. I was sitting on the wooden bench, my chest still heaving from 12 rounds of sparring. Matteo was kneeling in front of me, his fingers working methodically to peel the sweat-soaked cotton wraps from my knuckles. He was a sports physical therapist, hired 3 months ago to fix a torn rotator cuff that was threatening to end my career. He ended up doing a lot more than that. He pulled the last strip of cotton free, and his thumb brushed against my bruised knuckle. A shockwave went straight up my arm, bypassing every nerve ending and landing directly in my chest. I jerked my hand back. Not a lot, just a fraction of an inch. But Matteo noticed. He always noticed. He looked up at me, his dark eyes catching the harsh fluorescent light overhead. He had this infuriating habit of looking at me like I was not a machine built for violence. He looked at me like I was fragile, and God help me, I wanted to be fragile for him. "You are tense today," he murmured, his voice low enough that the assistant coaches walking past the open door could not hear him. "The fight is in 10 days," I said, staring at a crack in the cinder block wall because looking at his face was too dangerous. He stood up, dropping the wraps into his medical bag. "Yeah, 10 days. And then my flight is the morning after. Munich is waiting." He said it so casually, like he was talking about the weather, like my entire respiratory system had not just shut down. I tried to pull air into my lungs, but my ribs felt like they were made of concrete. I stood up too fast, my boxing boots squeaking aggressively against the linoleum. "Great." I forced the word out of my throat, making it loud, making it sound like the arrogant fighter everyone expected me to be. "You fix me up, I get the belt, you go fix up some European soccer players. Perfect transaction." Matteo stopped zipping his bag. He just stood there, the silence stretching between us, heavy and thick. Usually he would fire back with a dry joke. He would mock my ego, tell me my left hook was sloppy, bring me back down to earth. Today, he did nothing. He just watched me with this quiet, heavy disappointment that felt worse than a liver shot. "Right," he finally said softly. "Perfect transaction." He picked up his bag and walked out of the locker room, leaving me alone with the smell of bleach and the crushing realization that I was an absolute coward. I did not sleep that night. I lay in my apartment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, staring at the ceiling until the shadows turned gray with the morning light. Every time I closed my eyes, I did not see my opponent. I did not see the championship belt. I saw Matteo standing in the training room, sunlight catching the dust motes around him, his hands pressing into my aching shoulder, telling me to breathe. So, obviously, the next morning at the gym, I was a disaster. I was hitting the mitts with my head coach, Vic. Vic is 60 years old, has a nose that has been broken 4 times, and barks orders like a military sergeant. Keep your guard up, he yelled, smacking me on the side of the head with a focus mitt. You are dropping your right hand. You are sleeping out here. I grunted, throwing a combination that felt sluggish and weak. My eyes kept darting toward the glass door of the physical therapy office across the gym floor. Matteo was in there, charting notes on his laptop. He had not looked out at the ring once. Break, Vic snapped, dropping his arms. He leaned against the ropes, wiping sweat from his forehead with a towel, studying me with eyes that had seen 1,000 fighters break under pressure. What is in your head today? Nothing, I muttered, turning away to spit into a bucket. Vic snorted. Do not lie to me. You are fighting like a guy who is already lost. You have a title bout in 9 days. 9 days. And you are out here moving like you are underwater. Get it together, or I will pull you from the card myself. I nodded, gripping the rope so hard the coarse texture bit into my gloves. I need water, I mumbled, ducking through the ropes before he could argue. I walked straight past the water cooler and headed for the physical therapy office. I did not have a plan. I just knew the air in the gym was suffocating, and I needed to be near the only person who made me feel like I could breathe. I pushed the glass door open. The office smelled clean, like eucalyptus and fresh laundry. Matteo looked up from his laptop. He was wearing a dark gray polo shirt that fit him too perfectly, and his dark hair was slightly messy, like he had been running his hands through it. You are not scheduled for therapy until 3 o'clock, he said, his tone professional, cold. I shut the door behind me. The heavy thud of the bags and the shouting from the gym floor were instantly muffled. I walked over to the treatment table and sat on the edge, resting my forearms on my knees, staring at the floor. My shoulder is tight, I lied. Matteo watched me for a long moment. I could feel his gaze on the top of my head. I heard the scrape of his chair, then his footsteps. He stopped right in front of me. Take the shirt off, he ordered quietly. I pulled my sweat-soaked shirt over my head, dropping it onto the floor. I was used to being looked at, being analyzed for weaknesses. But when Matteo looked at me, it was entirely different. He stepped closer, stepping between my knees. His hands settled on my bare shoulders. His palms were warm, his fingers firm. He pressed his thumbs into the muscles at the base of my neck. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. My eyes drifted shut. You are tied in knots, he murmured, his voice softening, losing that professional edge. His hands moved down to my collarbone, sweeping across the heavy muscle. It is not just your shoulder. Your whole body is wired for panic. What is going on? I opened my eyes. We were inches apart. I could see the faint stubble along his jaw, the tiny scar near his left eyebrow from a bicycle accident he told me about 2 months ago. I could smell his cologne, something woody and sharp. I am fine, I whispered, staring at his mouth. You are a terrible liar, he whispered back. His hand stopped moving, resting heavily on my chest, right over my pounding heart. It was beating so fast it felt like a trapped bird. You have 9 days left. Are you scared of the fight? I shook my head slowly, keeping my eyes locked on his. No. Then what are you scared of? I swallowed hard. The truth was sitting right there, heavy on my tongue, begging to be let out. I am scared of the cameras. I am scared of the promoters. I am scared of the millions of dollars riding on my name. I am scared that if the sports world finds out their heavyweight champion wants to kiss his physical therapist, they will strip away everything I have ever worked for. But I could not say that. I could not put that burden on him. I am scared you will not be in my corner, I said instead. The words hung in the air, heavy and desperate. Mateo's breath hitched. His eyes searched mine, looking for the lie, but finding nothing but raw, absolute terror. I will be in your corner for the fight, he said softly, his thumbs tracing the line of my collarbone. But after that, I have to go. Munich. A massive opportunity. A clean break. I reached up and wrapped my hand around his wrist. My knuckles were bruised and raw, my hands massive compared to his. I held him there against my chest. Do not go. It was the most selfish thing I had ever said in my life. Mateo's expression shattered. The calm, collected medical professional vanished, leaving behind a man who looked just as wrecked as I felt. He pulled his hand free from my grip, taking a step back. The sudden loss of his warmth made the room feel freezing. Do not do that, he said, his voice shaking. Do not ask me to stay when you will not even look at me outside of this room. Do not ask me to give up my career when you flinch every time I stand too close to you in public. I stood up, my bare chest heaving. It is not that simple. It is that simple, he fired back, running a hand through his hair. You want me in the dark. You want me behind closed doors where nobody can see. But out there, in the lights, I am just the guy who fixes your shoulder. I deserve better than being a secret. He was right. He was completely right, and it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I took a step toward him, raising my hands like I was trying to calm a spooked animal. Mateo, please, you know how this industry is. If they know about me, about us, Vic will drop me. The sponsors will walk. I will be a joke. Mateo looked at me with a sadness so profound it physically hurt to witness. If they drop you for loving someone, then they never respected you in the first place. He turned back to his desk, closing his laptop with a sharp click. I am going to finish my notes. I will see you at 3 for your actual session. I stood there for a long time, listening to the muffled sounds of the boxing gym through the glass, the heavy thumps, the grunts, the sound of violence. It was the world I belonged to, the world I had bled for. But looking at Mateo's back, I realized it was entirely empty. The next few days were a masterclass in psychological torture. 8 days left, 7 days left, 6 days. The countdown was a ticking metronome in my brain. We flew to Las Vegas on day 5. The entire team, the promoters, the PR people. The private jet was a circus of clinking glasses, loud laughter, and aggressive bravado. I sat in the corner seat, staring out the window at the clouds, wearing noise-canceling headphones that were not playing any music. Mateo sat 3 rows ahead of me, reading a medical journal, acting completely professional. He did not look back at me once. Vegas was loud, hot, and suffocating. The hotel lobby was packed with fans, reporters, and flashing cameras. I put on my sunglasses, squared my shoulders, and became the monster they wanted to see. I scowled. I ignored the shouts. I let Vic do the talking. Deep down, I felt like a fraud. That night, after the weigh-in, I was sitting alone in my hotel suite. The neon lights of the strip bled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the room in harsh reds and blues. My knuckles were wrapped in ice packs. The silence of the room was deafening. There was a knock at the door, 2 sharp taps. I got up, my joints stiff, and pulled the door open. Matteo was standing in the hallway. He was wearing a plain white t-shirt and jeans, holding a small medical kit. He did not wait for an invitation. He walked past me, setting the kit on the glass coffee table. "Vic said you skipped the ice bath," he said, not looking at me. "I need to check the swelling in your right hand." I closed the door, leaning against the heavy wood. I don't care about the swelling. He stopped unpacking the kit and slowly turned around. The red neon light caught the side of his face. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, his shoulders slumped. We were both running on fumes. "Then what do you care about?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. I walked toward him, crossing the expensive carpet until I was standing right in front of him. I reached out, my large, bruised hand trembling, and gently touched his cheek. His skin was warm. He closed his eyes, leaning into the touch for a fraction of a second before pulling away. "I care about the fact that my flight back to New York is on Sunday, and yours is to Germany." I dropped my hand. "I care that I am about to step into a ring to fight for a title, and the only thing I can think about is how empty my corner is going to feel on Monday." Matteo shook his head, taking a step back until his calves hit the edge of the sofa. "You made your choice. You chose the belt. You chose the sponsors. I am not angry at you for it. I know what this sport demands. But I cannot stay and watch you pretend I mean nothing. I do not want to pretend anymore." The words fell out of my mouth before my brain could stop them. They hung in the neon-lit room, fragile and terrifying. Matteo froze, staring at me. "What did you say?" I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the stale hotel air. "I do not want to pretend anymore. I am tired. I am so damn tired of watching what I say, watching how I look at you. I am tired of being terrified." But Matteo did not look relieved. He looked angry. "Do not say that just because you are panicking before the fight. Do not give me hope tonight and then push me away when the cameras turn on tomorrow." I reached out and grabbed both of his arms, gripping him tightly but carefully. "I am not lying. Matteo, I have spent my whole life fighting. I fight in the ring, I fight for contracts, I fight for respect. But fighting my own head, fighting the fact that I want you, that is the only fight I am actually losing, and I want to lose it. I want to surrender." Matteo stared at me, his chest rising and falling rapidly. The anger in his eyes slowly melted, replaced by a desperate, crushing vulnerability. He reached up, his hands tangling in my t-shirt, gripping the fabric like he was drowning. "Prove it," he whispered, his voice cracking. And then he pulled me down. The kiss was not soft. It was not a movie scene. It was desperate, clumsy, and tasted like salt and exhaustion. My hands scrambled to find purchase, finally wrapping around his waist and pulling him hard against my chest. He tasted like mint and coffee, and the sheer relief of finally touching him, of finally letting the dam break, made my knees weak. We stumbled backward, hitting the edge of the sofa and collapsing onto it. I buried my face in his neck, breathing him in, listening to the jagged sound of his breathing. My massive hands, built for breaking jaws, were shaking as they traced the line of his spine. I held him like he was the only real thing in a world made of plastic and neon. For an hour, the world outside the hotel room did not exist. There was no championship fight. There was no press. There was just the quiet hum of the air conditioner, the harsh city lights, and Matteo. But morning always comes, and with it, reality. The next day was the final press conference, 2 days before the fight. The ballroom was packed with sports journalists, blinding camera flashes, and the heavy, humid heat of hundreds of bodies packed into one room. I was sitting at the long table on the stage, wearing a tailored suit, a microphone in front of me. My opponent, a massive, undefeated fighter from London, was talking trash. He was shouting about knocking me out in the third round, calling me washed up, calling me slow. I was not listening. I was looking out at the crowd. Standing by the exit doors, leaning against the wall, was Matteo. He had his arms crossed, watching me with a completely unreadable expression. Our secret from the night before was burning a hole in my chest. Prove it. That is what he had said. A reporter stood up, pointing a microphone at me. Jax, you seem distracted today. Your opponent says you are losing your edge. You have been isolated in camp. Are you mentally prepared for this fight? I leaned forward, wrapping my hand around the neck of the microphone. The entire room went dead silent, waiting for the heavy hitter to bite back. I looked at Vic, my coach, who was sitting next to me. He gave me a sharp nod. Tell them you are going to break him in half. That is what the nod meant. I looked back out at the crowd. I looked at the cameras. And then I looked at Matteo. The silence stretched. It became uncomfortable. I felt the sweat prickle at the back of my neck. I opened my mouth, but the arrogant words would not come. My chest felt like it was splitting open. I am prepared, I said, my voice low, rumbling through the speakers. But I haven't been isolated. I have had the best team in the world keeping me together, keeping me sane. I kept my eyes locked on Matteo across the room, especially my medical team. People think this sport is just about violence. It is not. It is about the people who put you back together when you are broken. The people who tell you the truth when everyone else is lying to you. The people who make the fight worth it. The room was quiet. It was not a typical boxing soundbite. It was too soft, too honest. I saw Matteo's posture change. He slowly uncrossed his arms, standing up straighter. A tiny, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of his mouth. It was not a grand coming out. It was not a massive declaration, but it was a crack in the armor. It was me, holding the door open just a fraction of an inch, letting the light in. After the press conference, the hallways backstage were a frenzy. I was walking toward the elevators, surrounded by security, when Vic grabbed my arm, pulling me into an empty catering room. He shut the door, plunging us into quiet. We stood there in the dim light. Vic looked at me, his weathered face hard to read. You are slipping, kid. I tightened my jaw, preparing for the lecture, preparing to defend myself. I am focused, Vic. Do not start with me. Vic sighed, pulling a cigar from his pocket and rolling it between his fingers. He did not light it. I have been in this game 40 years, he said, his voice grating like sandpaper. I have seen fighters ruin themselves over drugs, over money, over ego. You know what I have never seen ruin a fighter? I stared at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. What? Love, he grunted, looking up at me. I saw the way you looked at the physical therapist out there. I saw the way you looked at him in the gym all month. You think you are subtle. You are not. You move like a heavyweight. You hide things like a heavyweight. Clumsy. The floor dropped out from under me. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my veins. Vic, He held up a hand, stopping me. Shut up. Just listen. I don't care who you kiss behind closed doors. I care if you are going to get your head knocked off in the ring because you are too busy hating yourself. If you want the guy, keep the guy. But do not step into my ring carrying the weight of a secret. Fight clean. Live clean. He turned around and opened the door. Be at the gym at 5 for light stretching. And tell Matteo his tape jobs on your wrists are sloppy. And then he walked out, leaving me standing alone in the room, my entire worldview fundamentally altered. He knew. The grizzled, old-school boxing coach knew, and he did not care. He just wanted me to be whole. Fight night. The atmosphere in the arena was a physical weight, the roar of 20,000 people vibrating through the concrete floor, the smell of stale beer, sweat, and electricity. I was standing in the tunnel, wrapped in my robe, jumping on my toes, throwing shadow punches into the thick air. My music started, a heavy, booming bass track that shook my teeth. I started the walk down the tunnel, the cameras tracking my every move. The crowd noise was a physical wall hitting me in the face. I climbed the stairs, stepped through the ropes, and stood in the center of the ring. The lights were blinding. I went back to my corner. Vic was there, smearing Vaseline on my eyebrows. Beside him, holding the water bottle, was Matteo. He was wearing the team track jacket. He looked nervous, his eyes darting around the massive arena, but when he looked at me, he grounded me. He held the water bottle to my mouth. I drank, keeping my eyes on his. 10 days, I whispered around the plastic nozzle. What? He asked, leaning closer over the noise of the crowd. 10 days is over, I said, the mouthguard feeling heavy in my hand. Tomorrow is day 1. Matteo froze. The roar of the crowd seemed to fade away. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the exact moment he realized I was not letting him get on that plane to Munich. I was going to follow him. I was going to make him stay. I was going to fight for it. He smiled, a real, brilliant, blinding smile that outshone every spotlight in the arena. Try not to break your jaw, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I want to kiss you later. The bell rang. The fight was a blur of violence and pain. I took hits, I gave hits, my vision blurred in the 4th round from a cut over my eye. But every time I went back to the corner, Matteo was there, pressing the cold iron to my swelling skin, telling me to breathe, telling me I was still standing. I won by knockout in the 9th round. The arena erupted. The referee raised my hand. The belt was strapped around my waist. The cameras swarmed me, microphones shoved into my face, reporters screaming questions. How does it feel? What is your next move? Who are you calling out next? I looked through the sea of lenses and flashing lights. I saw Vic grinning around an unlit cigar, and I saw Matteo standing by the ropes, holding my towel, looking at me with a pride that made my chest physically ache. I pulled the microphone closer. My next move? I panted, blood dripping from my eyebrow, sweat stinging my eyes. I am taking a vacation. I have a flight to catch. Munich, I hear, is beautiful this time of year. I dropped the microphone. The reporters shouted in confusion, but I did not care. I pushed through the crowd, ignoring the cameras, ignoring the noise. I walked straight up to Matteo, grabbed the towel from his hands, and threw it over my shoulder. Let's go home, I said. We walked down the tunnel together, shoulder to shoulder, the noise of the arena fading behind us. We didn't hold hands, not yet. We still had a long way to go, a lot of conversations to have, a lot of press to navigate. But the distance between us was gone. The countdown was dead. So, that is how I survived the hardest fight of my life without throwing a single punch outside the ring. I want you to tell me down in the comments, have you ever had to choose between the career you built and the person who makes you feel alive? How did you handle that pressure? Let me know. Hit that subscribe button if you survived this journey with me. And stay strong out there. See you in the next one.